the first thing that came to my mind was, this guy probably could eat glass for breakfast, and I don't want to be messing with this guy. So glad that you've joined us for our first episode of Is God Active? Jumping into our first story, my father and I were in construction, masonry construction, and we would get buildings sometimes months in advance. And this particular building that we had a contract about 8 months in advance. Well, as things happen in life, things don't always go the way we think. And we got a call 2 weeks before the job was supposed to start. 2 weeks before the job was supposed to start, and they said, you're not going to believe it, but we actually gave this job to somebody else. Well, we're not actually going to believe it. I mean, we were a little bit angry. We were upset. Our life is now in chaos. How do we find work for all these guys? Fast forward, 3 weeks later, my dad gets a call, and it's from the contractor who had started that job. He calls him up and he says, hey, I don't know how to say this, but I'm in trouble. I'm over my head. This is too much for me. And I'm wondering if I could come and see you. I was out of town at the time on another project, and my dad called me up and said, hey, what do you think? And the first thing that came through my mind, let's let him suffer. And the second thing that came through my mind was, I wonder if this is from God. Could this be from God? Well, my dad met him, and he comes up to the house, and he's riding a big Harley. And I was like, wow, that's quite a bike. They have a conversation, and we set up a time to meet him the next day. My dad and I show up to the job. My dad's kind of prepping me. He's like, yeah, you got to meet this guy. This is not your ordinary guy. So I'm like, okay. So I'm kind of prepared in my mind, and we pull up to the site, and we come there, and Bill jumps out of his truck. And oh no, he was a very stereotypical person, a biker. Long goatee, shaved head, tattoos up the arms, all the knuckles, everything, all over. You betcha. It was him. And he was a big guy, kind of a no neck. The first thing that came to my mind was, this guy probably could eat glass for breakfast, and I don't want to be messing with this guy. So we go over to the job, and we start looking at everything. And we start looking at it, and he's telling us what's happening. You know, we've been in this business long enough. And we can see as we're looking, we're like, wow, okay, not the way we would have done it. That's not what I would have done. As we kind of went through and did a kind of an inventory list, and he told us how much money he had already drawn out, we came to the conclusion that more money was drawn out, less work was done, stuff would have to be redone. It really didn't look like it was a good fit. But after prayer, and a little bit of time, my dad and I said, you know what, let's do this. So we start the project, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know what, okay, this is from God. God's got something in mind. And the whole project, I never saw Bill once. Never saw him. Till the very last day. It was either the last day or the second last day. It's a little bit foggy at this point in my mind, but it was right near the last day. Bill calls me up. And wouldn't you know it, it's a busy day. And he calls me up and he said, hey, Luke, I'm just wondering if I can come and pick up my scaffold. Now, he had left his scaffold and all sorts of stuff on the project, and it'd just get pushed around and lifted and carried and moved and over and over. And I'm thinking in my mind, oh man, I wish Bill would have come a long time ago. Where have you been? Where have you been? Now you want to call, and today I'm so busy. Sure, yeah, okay, yeah, come on, yeah, pick up your scaffold. So we're working away, and sure enough, 20, 30 minutes later, Bill pops in, and he's down below, and we're up about 2 or 3 stories, and he's kind of waving at me, and hey, you know, and this little quiet voice, just kind of a nudge, Luke, go down and talk to Bill. All sorts of other people asking me questions, right in the middle of things. We're in the middle of building a couple of walls. We got different elevations and different things that had to be determined. And I push it off at another time. Luke, go down and talk to Bill. 4 times. The 4th time, I finally just threw my stuff down. I went down to the truck where he was at and started talking with Bill. Well, Bill, he smiles, he's happy. He's big and mean looking, but boy, he's happy. He's, when he wants to be, and his smile. And he was like, wow, this is great. Look at what you've done, all the project. Oh, you're almost done. And I can't believe it. And talking about how fast and how good it looks. And that same little quiet voice says, Luke, tell him why you did the job. Tell him why you're here. And I kind of gave him a 1-2 look over, and I don't know if I want to tell him why I'm here. Again, Luke, why are you here? Tell him why you're here. We'll back up in that story. When we were trying to figure out, we were praying, does this look like a good job? God had been doing some work in my heart. God had been doing a lot of work in my heart. Before business was a place where you get what you want, make sure it's on your terms. But God was changing my heart, looking like, how does it affect others? And the reason why we're on that job is because God had done something in my heart. And so now we're back to there, and that little voice says, Luke, tell him why you're here. I don't want to tell him. He doesn't look like he's going to want to know. Tell him why you're here. And so as I'm looking at Bill, just like I'm looking right at you, the building was behind us. And it's a 3-story building. There's people on every floor, and they're all kind of looking out, peering out, watching. Different trades kind of watching. They know that he started the job. They know that he's not on the job. They know he has a reputation. They see his size and they see my size. So they're kind of keeping an eye out for me. Bill's looking out to the lake. And as I'm looking at Bill, and that small voice says one more time, tell him why you're here. I looked Bill in the eyes and I said, Bill, we could talk about the walls, we could talk about production, we could talk about the money. But the real reason why we're here is there's a God that loves you, Bill. As I said those words, Bill settles down and kind of collapses onto this stack of pallets behind us. And as he's doing that, he grabs me and hugs me and holds on to me. And it was a real bear hug. And tears are coming out of his eyes, and he is crying. And the whole job site behind me that I can see, he can't see, is just looking with eyes bugging out and looking over there, wondering if I'm in trouble. And he's holding on to me and gripping on me, and he's crying. And he says to me, Luke, I've been looking for this my whole life. There's a text in the Bible. It's found in Romans. Romans chapter 10, verse 13. It says, for whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Bill called on the name of the Lord when he was there. He said, I've been looking for this my whole life, holding on to you. Oh, this is what God wants for you, Bill. Bill invited me to his home, and he invited my wife to his home. I went first, and then Jana came. And as we were at his home and we were doing Bible studies, it wasn't like once a week. It was sometimes like 4 times a week. And the one particular time when we were sitting out there, we would sit on his deck and you could look up at the mountain. We were sitting there, he had to go to the bathroom and he left. And his wife came over to me, and because she was just kind of nervous around there. So she wasn't always sitting around in the Bible study. She came in and she said, who is this guy? I said, what? She's like, who is this? Who is he? I don't even know who he is anymore. She said, I used to wake up in the morning with a stomach ache. I'd feel sick to my stomach. I was scared. I was nervous until he left. And then I was at peace. And I would have peace until I knew he was coming. He would text me when he's coming home. And then I would be like, oh no, anxiety. I don't even know this guy anymore. As we're studying the Bible, God started to change Bill's life. You may be asking yourself, is God active? Will God work in my life? Will he work in my family's life? Can he work in my business? I want to tell you today, God is active. He may show up in places where you may least expect it. You may be put in a circumstance that is a little awkward, Maybe something you didn't expect or think, oh, no, this person doesn't want that. God is very creative on how he reaches each one of us. And I want to invite you again next week to join us as we look at our next episode of Is God Active?